Black culture is a beautiful thing. It's full of triumph, struggle, it's full of ingenuity. And even though all of that is true, it's still more important to focus on what's happening today over what's happened in the past. You can use the past to draw comparisons, like the strength of the black family and the black community during the civil rights movement versus the strength of the black family and community today. I'm not doing this video to preach to anybody. And for that reason, I'm going to use myself and my life story as an example. This will be part one. I'll cover my story from birth to the age of 18. And then we'll move on to the next section of my life in the next video of this series. Welcome to the Mr. Wilson's Got a Headache podcast. I'm your host, Dennis the Menace. Subscribe, do me a favor, and like the video. And if you have any comments, comment section is open. First, my name is Dennis. I was born in Raleigh, North Carolina in 1985. When I was born, I came back from the hospital to a home with a mother and a father. And we had a pretty middle-class life. But I was too young to remember any of that. And by the time I was old enough to remember, I remember growing up in the projects.
We're following breaking news. Two men seriously injured after a shooting in Raleigh. Here's a live look from the scene. You see that taped off scene there. Police officers there. This happened on Bragg Street just before 4:30.
When I say the projects, I'm talking about neighborhoods with drive-by shootings, with drug dealers outside, with women seeing Johns on the side of the house, with holes in the roof and rats in the house. If you know, it's extremely important to draw that distinction. Because some neighborhoods could be considered hood, and that's a little different in the project. The most dangerous areas are usually the projects because of how close people live together and how shut off you are from the rest of the world. I remember this one street I lived on. It was called Sawyer Road. I remember being in elementary, and we were broke, so we ain't had no money. We weren't fresh. We ain't have the best clothes, anything like that. And I remember one day I got off the bus. This guy came up to me, he had gold chains on, he had a nice car with the rims, and all the ladies were around him, and he was like, "Look, man, look at your shoes." I looked down, they were raggedy. I remember wishing I had some different shoes. He was like, "Listen, man, I can get you some shoes, but you gotta do something for me." I was like, "Okay." And he handed me a package that was wrapped in newspaper and plastic. He put it in my book bag, and he was like, "Yo, I know you be hanging with Lil such and such. You know his house." I'm like, "Yeah." Like, "Yeah, run that down there." All right, that's all I got to do. So here I am, second or third grade, and I'm walking down the street. I'm a little excited because he just told me he gonna give me some shoes. And I needed some shoes. I get to the house, I knock on the door, and I remember the door opening up real fast and them yanking me in the house. Head back yanking me in the house. I'm looking at them, they looking at me. "Who are you?" They asking me who I am. I'm like, "Yo, he told me to bring this down here." I open the book bag, I give it to him. I think that's it. So I'm about to leave, and they say, "Nah, man, you got to sit down." So I sit down on the couch. And mind you, even though I lived in the projects, I really didn't come up in a house where they had a whole lot of this stuff going on. My mom was a church lady. All of a sudden, I'm looking, and there's women in there with men jumping in and out of rooms. I'm seeing cocaine on the table. I'm seeing hard people smoking out of pipes. And over a period of time, all of this stuff was extremely normal to me. I remember there was quite a few times where bills needed to be paid in the house, and my mom was praying, and she was, seeking the Lord to get it done because she didn't know where it was going to come from. Little did she know that quite a few of those times when things got paid, if it wasn't paid from my grandfather, it was being paid by the people that I was running this stuff for. Yeah, according to her, God came through, but I knew the truth. My mom decided to move us to Fayetteville, North Carolina. Around this time, I'm in middle school. So now we in Fayetteville, and we moved to what some would consider the projects again, but really it was a HUD neighborhood. But the difference was there were no drug dealers, no drive-by shootings, nothing. A lot of the community believed that they live in the projects, but I don't see it that way because I was coming from something much worse than what this neighborhood was. And now I have to adjust to this new reality. And to be honest with you, because the people in this area were so much nicer than what I was used to, it was a tough adjustment. Even before I moved to Fayetteville, I had already started playing the piano. My grandmother was a piano player. And so I watched her play, and I started picking it up on my own. And I had become pretty good for somebody who was so young. But when I moved to Fayetteville, I started spending a lot of time at the rec center on the piano there because I didn't have my own. and I started practicing all the time. Eventually, I started playing at a church in Savoy Heights, and that's where I really began to develop. Then I remember high school. I became an athlete. I began to then start being introduced to people from different walks of life, because up until then, my world was only as big as the neighborhoods that I lived in and maybe a few other places here and there. And the thing that confused me is that eventually when I began to spend the night at people's houses, it always seemed like people who had more than us wanted what we had in the project. And I couldn't quite understand why they would want what we had, why they would trade eating a hot meal every night for what we had. But now as an adult, I know that most people want what they don't have. What I didn't know is that the things that I had experienced, the things that led to some of the battle wounds that you might see on my forehead if I was to take the hat off, or on other parts of my body, the things that had happened and the things that I had been involved with, those things had a big impact on how I saw the world and how I dealt with people. One of those things was being broke for real, but making sure you were stepping out of the house looking like you had some money. During this time in Fayetteville, because there was no opportunity for me to do these things in that community, I didn't. But eventually I would return back home, and details on that story will be on the next video. The reason why I bring this up is because during those times and in other times in my life, I wasted a lot of money trying to impress people. But when you're put in those type of positions, especially when you're younger, it's extremely tough to change your mindset. I bring up this conversation because right now in the United States, no matter how much people around you are trying to make you believe, most people, not everybody, but let's say 90% of people in this country right now are struggling, or at least at a place they cannot do what they used to do financially. But because of American culture, nobody wants to be honest, fall back and maybe not get the brand new car, but go get a cash car and save some money and then invest that money. And as a result, if this thing falls off a cliff, which it may or it may not, a lot of people are going to experience a lot of pain. I did a video. It's on my page. I'm going to try to make sure that it's at the top of this video right now, or a few seconds from now. At the top of the video, you should see a card over on this side of the video. And that video talked about how most people believe, especially on the right, that Donald Trump becoming president is going to somehow save America immediately. And all of a sudden, we're going to be rolling in money. That's not true. And that's exactly what I talked about in this video. Sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. Take some time and watch that video. In the next video that I post, it won't be a video in this series. Next video that I post, we'll be talking about the signs that are showing up in the economy right now. I've done several videos on this, but there's some new information in the housing market, in the car market, in the stock market that we need to talk about. There are more reasons to prepare yourself for bad times now than there has ever been. Subscribe to the channel now so you won't miss that video. That's all I got today, man. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.